Will they replace kind of development and developers in the future? Uh, maybe, but it will all the developers use these AI agents? 100%.
Welcome to Generation AI, where we demystify AI in higher education and beyond. I am JC Bonia, joined by my awesome co-host, Ardis. Welcome to the show today. How you doing, pal?
Hey, JC, I'm doing great. I love this episode. I think, well, I haven't been able to get access to some of these personal AI agents that we're going to talk about today, but we have a really good one. This is really, really cool.
Everybody, Ardis is talking about what took the world by a storm last week. And today we're recording, this was over the weekend, so 5 days later. By the time this drops, Manus, which probably you can buy an access to for about $10,000 apparently. They're selling their invites. Maybe not the new next shiny thing, but that's the world that we live in. So today we have an episode about agents, AI agents, but more importantly, it's a build up towards Manus, the state of agents. Really, really interesting things keep on happening. And one of the things that Artists and I want to give you is a review of how, whether it's a research agent, coding agent, automation, workflow orchestration, agents are here not only to stay, but we're trying to give you the idea of where it's going and this idea of autonomous intelligence and how it's starting to look like. So, really interesting episode. So, a little bit of build up.
That's right. I think when you talk about agents, there's just so many, like we've done so many episodes. In this particular one, we're talking about personal agents, right? So, personal agents that you're using. We probably are familiar with the ones, deep research, that OpenAI and Gemini and all the other vendor providers have put into their chatbots. Those are personal agents that are doing research work, but we're not talking a little bit more, right? So Manus we're going to be talking about that, but really the real story and kind of what we're going to try to focus on today is that overall the models that are coming out by itself, there is no magic there anymore, right? They're getting better, yes, they're getting faster, but really it's the workflows and the user experience on top of those that matters. How you're productizing it and what kind of systems and agents that you're building to accomplish real work and the real workflows, and that's the crux of where we are today on these personal agents. We've moved away from model capabilities to now how do we actually build our workflows and how do these personal agents help us with our day-to-day workflows that we have to do.
So, what Ernest is talking about is a really important mental framework. Think about 2002. We get hit with generative AI, and it's all about frontier models. And the LLM is it, right? 2023, just 2 years ago, right? Then it keeps on pushing, and all these drops, and we start seeing the foundational aspect of this agentic AI, the agents, right? But then just last year, probably the most exciting thing that we saw towards the I think it's end of Q1, beginning of Q2, it's reasoning emerges, right? And this is the emergence of autonomous personal agents, right? And we've done a ton of conversations with Keynote on what makes an agent an agent. And to recap, you need to reason, you need to be able to adapt, and you need to action. And this is where, OpenAI with ChatGPT 4.0, with Gemini 2.0, all these fantastic LLMs come and allows us to basically start doing this type of new work, which I call 2025 artists, the maturation of agents, right? And I think what we have been talking over and over, it's this is the year of the agents. The last thing I'll mention to recap, 2025 not only is the domination of agents, and we start seeing these personal agents emerge, right? And they're autonomous. But I want to remind everybody that we saw two really important developments this year that ground the conversation today in terms of time to value and speed. Cost of inference, cost of production dropped significantly. DeepSeek showed that. And Grok 3, right? just allows us to understand that time to value, you can replicate the whole 2 years, 3 years that just walked us by in under a year, right? And then kind of give us even better capabilities, specialized reasoning, real time problem solving, set a new standard, speed, accuracy. They won every metric and they did it in record time. So, what we have is time compression at its best. Because of that, what Ardis and I want to give you is when we speak about all thing agents, there's a category of, we believe there's four types of agents: a general task agent, the researcher, a workflow agent, code generation agents, right? These are basically the flavors that this kind of evolution of agents and agentic frameworks have given us.
Right. The personal agents.
Correct. Researchers and general task.
Yeah, exactly.
So, artists, can we just do one at a time and then kind of remind everybody what these kind of, all right, if I'm a personal agent and I focus on general tasks, what do I look like? Kind of what do I do? So let's take general tasks. So I'm designed as an agent to the broad applications, personal productivity, scheduling, light automation, right? And this is where we start seeing the kind of the executive assistant version of that agent, right?
Correct.
So
Yeah, a lot of people have built custom GPTs that are basically these task agents, right, or general task agents. So you throw a bunch of instructions in there, you give it a personality, and you say, "Hey, perform this thing," and then you have a conversation, and it goes ahead and does a task for you. So it accomplishes something. You can schedule it to run on a schedule, and we saw, OpenAI introduce that as well. So really, these agents handle like single step actions, but really struggle when you tell it to do deeper reasoning, or you have to tell it, okay, now go through this process and that process and that process. So multi-step kind of components, they really struggle with that. They don't have a lot long-term execution in order to start thinking through that, right? So that's the general task ones.
we saw those limitations. Yeah, we saw those limitations. And in a way, this is 2024 vibes. And many of us kind of, from emails to LinkedIn posts and things of that sort. Now, speaking of 2024 and then this year, the researcher agent emerged. And to your point of, hey, general tasks were not really great at deep reasoning. In a way, these guys were the best at deep reasoning, and they solved that problem. Like, hey, I really need knowledge, deep knowledge, and synthesize it. I need to go back here and link literature, research. It and what we gain with researchers, it's autonomous research. Deep research is an example. OpenAI had this version, I think it's on the $200 wall garden.
I think they brought it down to the general version now as well, OpenAI. So
Perplexity did it for free, right? Gemini, everybody has their own version of a deep researcher, right?
yeah, and the way that works, it's you provided a question, or you provided some framework that you're trying to understand. You can ask it, "Hey, I need to know about a program. This, artificial intelligence. We're starting a new artificial intelligence program. I need to understand what the market is like for this program in the area of Raleigh Durham area. I need to understand what the market is like for job opportunities." And then it goes out and it does the work of breaking that down and saying, oh, okay, you need to understand this question. Here's how we're going to break it down. I'm going to go do web searches, bring that data back, reason through it, do some more web searches. So it's a loop, it's a process, it's a researcher. So at the very core of it, that's how that works. And like I said, like JC said, like you have it available in OpenAI, or in ChatGPT rather. You have it available in Perplexity. You have it available in Gemini. You have it available in Grok as well, which is really, really interesting. So every one of the chatbots, or the general chat platforms that you're using, have now an ability to do this deep research component of it.
Any deep research examples that you've done lately that are kind of worth mentioning? Literally this morning, leading to this conversation, I'm prepping for something we're gonna be doing on AI powered admissions. So if I need to know all the human staffing models the universities have. So a researcher, actually I use Grok because I wanted to ping tweets, right? and just give me all the stats on kind of admission readiness, admission processing time, staffing costs. So, any interesting projects that you've done on research, deep research lately?
So I'm actually I have changed my workflow drastically, JC. One of the things that I do today is I almost always start with a deep research, process. So one of the questions can be like, as we're preparing for these podcasts, I don't know everything that's happening in the market for certain things. Yes, I do keep up with it, but I start with a deep research question or with a research question. It goes out, does that research, comes back, and then I use that as the context for the rest of my inquiry and for the rest of the buildup on either a podcast or some other workflow. One that we did the other day, when I did, of course, for a lot of these podcast episodes, but another one that I did was around thinking through how do you how do you do, let's say, incentives for technology adoption or AI technology adoption, right? And what does higher education look like, and what does higher education buyer think about AI and how to adopt that? So I needed to do a lot of that research. So we went out and did all that research and came back, and now I started to build my thesis around this and start to communicate back and forth with AI around that. Another one that I used the other day was when we did our presentation on student success, and an element in student success. I needed to really understand the market and where the friction points are with providing students with support, and what does national averages look like, and where are the friction points. And he came back with amazing results and data on time for calls, or how many, like, what's the national average for a advisor to student ratio, right? Like, how many caseloads are they handling? And then all of those are referenced, and basically it's pulling up Chronicle articles, it's pulling up research from different universities, it's pulling up all these pieces and bringing it back to me. And now I'm able to do that. Last one, thinking about how do we build use cases on the product side, right? I don't understand what the need is for the customer or what the problems are. So I have a vague, umbrella question or a vague umbrella, and I can go back now, and I've done that before multiple times. Like, how do we solve? Here's the problem. Here's how we're seeing it. Can you do research on how do we think about this from a product perspective? Can you bring up some examples of where this is solved in industry, even outside of higher education? And then that's a starting point to think through all of the different areas that I might not even think about it. So it's really accelerated the learning process and how I'm producing work that is found, basically based on real world data that I just couldn't do before, right?
So and that's what makes this agent personal, right? In the framing that we're given today, they're personal agents because what Ardis is walking us through, what I'm walking you through, is that we launch them in our own journeys and Ardis' approach versus mine, but they're coming in. So we have the researcher and we have these general tasks. These two have a child, and these kind of look like the workflow agents because one of the things that let's look at Ardis' process. So what he would do is that literally he consumes all the information in the world for one specific thing, that's deep research. And then you may want to use summarization or give me some type of thing. That will be the general task. But then workflow automation, in a way, puts this in a multi-step process across a system, the artist system, or maybe a business system. Make.com, we use it a lot in the company, but Zapier, Auto GPT based workflows orchestrators, ton, ton of agents do this kind of orchestrator workflow thing. So
So they're tying different pieces together.
that's more your domain, my friend. I don't dwell with workflow agents. What else can you tell us about this? And I don't know, something of the integration from enterprise and how you maybe do B2B. What can we say about workflow agents here, Artis?
Yeah, so these are really powerful for everybody that's just doing those task agents. Like they're just doing one thing at a time, and then they're going in. For example, one of the really great examples we gave during our AI Engage Summit was how do you automate putting together a topic, creating a research around that topic, creating a summary, creating an email sequence, creating a podcast or a voice readout, and how do you orchestrate all those pieces together. So all you have to do is just put a document with a short brief in your Google Drive, and now the workflow happens after that. So that's one of the ways. But workflow agents are also things that we use, let's say relevance for personalization, right? Relevance is just an agentic platform where you build these agents and they work together. So you can build a whole bunch of personal ones, and then you just ask a question, or you ask for a general task, and then it figures out underneath which is the right agent to use, and then they kind of hand things off to each other. But these are general platforms for building. Zapier is another one, very similar to that. There's Lindy.com or Lindy.ai, which is another one that's more on the personal side. They can connect to your Gmail and do some work in there. So there's a whole bunch of those workflow agents or products.
Yeah, one of the most exciting things about workflows agents is that on deep research, you're saying I'm subject to the Grok 3 deep research approach, the Perplexity. With workflow agents, you're able to basically mix and match between LLMs and also like if the workflow, let's say Perplexity, sometimes allows you to bring this from Claude, bring that from OpenAI, and that mix and match is very, very powerful. We have a special mention on a type of agent that is a code generating agent, not only because this is center and core of what we do as professionals, right? There's a lot of software developers and DevOps, but it's been a dominating field lately, as in the past 2 to 3 weeks, with acquisitions, investments that really start to signal that there's a wave of code coming to us with this quote, Ardis. AI will be writing 90% of the code in the next 6 to 3 months, says Anthropic's CEO, Dario Amodei. So, a really interesting viewpoint that allows us to understand all these agents are supporting writing, debugging, and optimization of code. Examples, of course, Anthropic, Cursor, and the one that you showed me this week, Lovable. Oh my gosh, did I love that? So,
You loved Lovable.
I love Lovable. Just walk us through what happens in this one of these code generating agents, Artists.
Yeah, yeah. So obviously LLMs are really good at generating code, but a real kind of software engineer has to go through a process of thinking through what the problem is, breaking it down, generating multiple files, thinking through like, okay, I need to build this and I need to build that. So you're building this you're basically doing multi steps in order to get some code. Where we were, let's say a few months ago or last year, we talked about Devin, which was one of the software engineers, but now that's being incorporated into a lot more tools. So the agentic workflow around code generation is becoming very, very common, where you can generate whole features together. If you're a developer, you're using Cursor or using Anthropic's code agent. Lovable is a no code solution to that. It's basically doing something very similar, but it's actually giving you a full product, and it's doing the coding behind the scenes. So you just give it a prompt and you tell it what you want, and it's actually going ahead and building the whole thing. There's also Bolt, which is another one, but Lovable is one of the more interesting ones that's shot up. And will they replace kind of development and developers in the future? Maybe, but it will all the developers use these AI agents? 100%. So when Anthropic's CEO comes out and says, hey, 90% of the code in the next 3 to 6 months will be written by AI, it's amazing because they're the creators behind the models that Cursor uses and Lovable and all of these. Basically, Sonnet 3.7, which is one of the models. There, it's one of the best coding models right now, right? So it's got large. So when he says that, he's probably looking ahead in terms of his roadmap and kind of what they're doing and how good these models are getting. So I wouldn't be surprised if obviously that's I don't think that would be true, but I wouldn't be surprised if these agents are getting really really good where now you can they'll be able to write all of that code for you without you having to. Well, let me take a step back. Jason, do you want to talk about maybe we can just talk about this idea of vibe coding? Have you heard of it?
Vibe coding? No, but what is vibe coding?
So the vibe coding is a new thing that's
As in VIBE? Vibe?
yeah, when you say vibe, so you keep mentioning, oh, the vibe of this, the vibe of
You
that.
know,
Yes.
that's one of my words.
Yeah.
I do tell. What is vibe coding?
So vibe coding is when you're going back and forth with this AI agents and you don't really know what you want. So you're essentially telling them something and then going back and forth. It's like, hey, I would like to get this, but maybe just do it this way. So like it's producing real products, right? But it's vibe coding. Somebody like, I don't know how to code, but I'm vibe coding because I'm working with an AI agent to do that. So through vibes, it's like, oh, is it working? Is it not working? Maybe I'm communicating with you, and then you do all the code, and you're producing like you care about the end product, right? So vibe coding is it's interesting, and a lot of people, if you're kind of in that circle, like you're Lovable, for example, is a platform where you can do a lot of that vibe coding. Cursor, of course, you can do that. Yeah.
So, artists, to recap, a personal assistant, AI power assistant, it could either come to you as a junior developer. We put them in the category called coders, right? And you can be vibing with them or be very requirements driven. They also support us in workflow because they can be orchestrated. And they're orchestrating between general tasks, a type of personal assistant, or things like deep research. But the world went into a beautiful storm about the art of the possible that comes with that type of personal assistant, the autonomous execution. And this is kind of what we like to spend the rest of the time because Manus, another China creation innovation drop, comes to us, but now this is different. We saw China taking the world by a storm with DeepSeek, and what they taught us is look, we can reproduce awesome technology like the ones you've done, super fast, super efficient. This is different, artists. What we saw, it's that a product that stood out significantly because it's not just an agent, but it's a full ecosystem capable of doing autonomous execution over an extended period of times. I didn't see the massive wave in X. You pinged me about it, and then my social media, in terms of started like flooding, and podcasts started emerging.
AI powered and people focused. This is the future of higher ed. Join us in Charlotte, June 24 and 25 for the 2025 Engage Summit. Learn how AI transforms student engagement by blending scalability and authenticity. Enrollify listeners get 50% off with code Enrollify50. That's Enrollify50. Register now at engage.element451.com.
What was your first thought when you saw Manus, and how did it stand up in front of you?
Well, at first I thought I was looking at some of the videos, or I was looking at the threads, and I'm like, yeah, it's just another thing. It's very similar. So OpenAI had introduced Operator, for example. Essentially, you give it a task, and then it goes in and uses a browser to accomplish that task, and that's an agent. But then I was like, you know what? I wasn't really impressed when I used Operator. It just needed a lot of input and things like that.
It
But
was slow too.
Exactly. But then as folks starting to come in and they're posting videos, Minus is able to accomplish so many general tasks that you're giving it because it has all the tools in the background. Like it can write code, it can call the browser, it can do a lot of those things. and it's completing tasks that are amazing. One of the most interesting ones, JC, which is incredible. So one of the things that you mentioned before is it costs about $10,000 right now to get an access code because it's locked down. So I haven't had gotten access to it yet. But
Apparently, there's 2 million people. There's 2 million people in the wait list.
yeah, yeah. It's incredible, right? And one of the things that the best use cases that I saw was somebody using Manus to create itself. So they
That's a
told
good
it
one.
to
Yeah.
basically create an open source version of it. And guess what it's called? Anus.
That's fun. By the way, manus comes from Latin hand, mano.
Yeah.
So it's I'm not gonna tell everybody what the reverse of that means, but that's the opposite version of it.
That's funny.
So Artis, totally, it's an untraditional AI tool,
Right, right.
or in it has a really interesting kind of persistent memory and a multi agent approach. So, but let's start talking about the unique aspects that makes it significant. And just like you, many of us went through the same one more, and then when we looked at the explosion of these and the teasers, is not one more. So the first thing that we know is it has autonomous task execution. What does that mean, right? I need my deep research. I'm going to go back to your example to finalize, look at all the information in a way, and then I plug something else there, maybe the Google Doc and things like that, to streamline the next 2, 3 steps, which may be a script for this podcast. Fine. I'm going to be super smart. I'm going to create another agent that is a workflow. So it does that. Autonomous means that it will not need the human input, and it actually decides that you needed a workflow. So it's a really, really exciting thing. And it just basically takes that human intervention to a minimal approach. Very, very, very exciting. You want to talk about autonomous execution from your side?
Yeah, I think this is where we're moving towards an element we've actually been working on the autonomous agents for. We call them proactive assistants, or obviously autonomous agents. Just the word makes a lot more sense. So just like we built AI agents for enrollment and all of those things, communications, now you have autonomous agents that are basically deciding what to do next, right? To accomplish a particular goal. And that's the case here. So autonomously, they're not asking you every 5 minutes, like, hey, do you want me to do this? Or what should I do now? They're essentially deciding what to do. They're going down a particular path. They're using a whole bunch of tools. They're like, well, you know what? This doesn't accomplish that goal. I'm going to go back. I'm going to follow this other task right now. So autonomously in the background, they're working. They can run for upwards of hours in order to accomplish those things, right? And they're using different tools or different agents in order to accomplish different things. They work in the background and then they complete the task. It's an end-to-end task completion, right? So Manus can really perform from the start to finish, including things like it can do data analysis, it can do decision making, it can implement things, it can write code, it can write files. So all of those pieces are basic tools that it uses and orchestrates in order to accomplish those goals in there. And the last thing, it's like around initiatives, like unlike other AI system, that it doesn't really require this crazy prompting that we've seen before. The prompting goes away now. So you just give it a goal and then it understands, and it doesn't need the prompting for you to break down the task or to tell it step by step what to do. Like all of that stuff is handled automatically.
Natively multi-agent, right? Natively allows to do work behind the scenes. You can close the laptop, your device, come back, it notifies you when it's done. Operator, you kind of have to stare at it. Maybe just go to the other window, and it's all because it's designed to be end to end. That independence aspect, right? That it can think, strategize, and adapt dynamically. AKA, today you need to create the 7 agents that you think you need, and then AI can orchestrate and whatnot. In this case, if you thought of 7, Manus would come in and say, you need 24, and then here they are, right? And then it puts the orchestration layer, all that kind of kind of software strategy, AI strategy it's the labor. It's really, really exciting and it's super, super promising. So, artists, and where we're going, it's, I think it's really interesting, right? Because it changes many paradigms. But one of the things that you've been talking about, and I like how you position is, hey, ain't LLMs ain't the secret sauce anymore, right? These like fundamentally changes how we think about the secret sauce. Like, can you riff on that a little bit?
Yeah, this goes back to one quote that in early 2023, 2024, people were like, "Hey, your application is just a wrapper. It's an LLM wrapper, right?" This have you heard this
Yes,
word before?
of course.
It's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
this is
yeah. I know
just
what
an
you mean. Yeah.
LLM wrapper. Well, guess what? Manus is just an LLM wrapper over Sonnet 3.7, right? The Anthropic, but it orchestrates and builds all these pieces together, and it uses
Rappers are not independent, right?
right, right.
So this is a very different thing. The rapper continues to grow in its anyway.
Exactly, exactly. LLMs are getting commoditized, meaning that what they're able to do, the capabilities are getting commoditized. It's what you build on top of them and the workflows that are actually making a big difference. And where the value is being generated by AI now. It's like, how do you replicate the workflows that are available in each particular domain? And how do you tune those workflows in that particular domain? And it's usually the user experience that drives the real impact. So those LLM wrappers, well, guess what? Now they have graduated to actually full applications or full AI agents or personal agents that can actually do all of the things that a human was able to do before a lot faster, better, and they're using the best models underneath.
100%. Unfortunately, as Ardis mentioned, he doesn't want to spend $10,000 to get an early preview and access. We cannot demo Manus, so we'd recommend you all see the videos. They're floating through the internet, and actually personally don't like their demo that they've done on Manus.ai, but I've seen more interesting ones. Ardis, the shift from human in the loop to human as a supervisor models is accelerating. That's the other really interesting takeaway here. You and I have been, I think, a calming force to everybody. Like, don't worry about it. AI would have human in the loop at its center, and that should put you at peace. This is different because it puts human as a supervisor, and you and I also believe that that's a new capability in our organizational design. Look at our keynotes. Look at our whole agentic 1 to 3 episodes. But yeah, human as supervisor, it's kind of where it's at because what happens in this, what it means for the future AI is this is my strategy. It orchestrated, it created the agents, and then I can come in and review the work. Okay, you're good to go. Go live. Where are you at in this interesting human in the loop versus what Manus provides us?
It's I'm finding it harder and harder to at least support the claim that hey, AI is not going to replace certain functionalities or certain roles. It will replace their certain roles today, and it might replace them in 6 months because the capabilities are getting better and better, right? And the way that we've kind of talked about it is this notion that somebody with AI is going to take your job. AI is not going to take your job, right? So, and it goes back to what we're talking is that, this agentic systems need to be operated by somebody who's managing them.
Yeah.
And the orchestrator is putting all these pieces together. Are they going to get easier and easier to put together in the future? Absolutely. And that's what we're working at Element for. But you, as the individual, need to get up to speed and start using a lot of these systems and kind of understand how they can be flowing into your role so you can be the person who is managing these systems rather than just somebody who's producing output right now, because that output is going to be handled by more and more of this AI agentic systems as we move forward. So like as we're seeing what capabilities we can do, it's really hard to support that the same role today is going to exist tomorrow or three months from now or 6 months from now. Think about data entry. It's like that's real. Is that really a thing anymore? Like,
I had drinks with a former colleague from like in advanced analytics. and he was telling me about, I really think my kids should be plumbers, right? And this kind of think about if, as it expands, what we see AI doing better at, and to your claim, starting to remove the human dependencies on work. It's so the knowledge economy is in this type of, work, jobs that do not look like building things which are tangential, like plumbing, infrastructure, hardware, electrician. So it was a really interesting conversation about going back to some of those hard skills. Either way, everybody, it's coming, and I think that one of the things that will be very exciting to see is their history repeats itself, and we've seen these big drops. They create this excitement, and then how the commercialization race comes later to see how, what is the pricing model, and then this other version or company drops a faster, better one, and they have a more interesting conversation approach. So that's probably what is going to happen here, where a personal, autonomous, end-to-end, independent agent comes in, and it's available to many of us. And to Ardis's point, continues to accelerate some of these human supervisor and augmenter of, the workplace. Very interesting future. And as I remind everybody, this happened just a week ago. And by the time you hear this, Manus may be replaced by Anus. And Anus maybe
The
have,
open
have been
source.
taken by who knows, artists.
Oh, I love.
um, all right. Artist, take us home and sign
We're
us
gonna
off.
end it. We're gonna end it on that bad joke for sure. So we'll until next time, everybody. Hope you've enjoyed this one. We'll come back to you with more updates. Generation AI is part of the Enrollify podcast network. If you like this podcast, chances are you're going to like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing weekly, and we've got a wide range of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional. Our shows help higher ed leaders and professionals like you find their next big idea. They feature a selection of the industry's best as your hosts, like Jamie Hunt, Seth Odell, Jenny Lee Fowler, Brian Gross, and many of your favorite leaders in higher ed. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform that's helping institutions all over the country create meaningful, personalized, and engaging connections with their prospects and students. Learn more at element451.com.